Hey everyone, I have an interesting hearing out of Centerville, Michigan with Judge Jeffrey Middleton. Please check out his channel and subscribe. This is a small claims hearing about neighbors and a fence. Property lines always tend to bring out the worst in people. I love Judge Middleton's very direct and down-to-earth approach. Watch and comment and make sure you subscribe. Click on that bell so you get notifications when a new video comes out. We also have a Discord group that we invite you to join. The links to everything is in the description.
Good afternoon. Are you Raymond Allen Jeske?
Yes, sir.
And how do you say it?
Jeske.
Jeske. And you're Michael Mullendor?
Yes.
And you're Shelley Platts. I don't know you by that name, but I know you. So with everyone here, please raise your right hand. You all swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give here will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief.
I do. I do.
All right. This is a claim for $2,100. It has to do with a fence between neighbors on Walnut Street here in the city of Three Rivers. The problem is my file is all electronic, so let me get into it. I'm going to close that waiting room out. There's no reason to leave it open. Your brother was quite a popular guy around here.
Yes, he was.
For a long time. We still miss him and joke about him from time to time.
So do I. I miss him too.
This is a claim, as Mr. Jeske says, for $2,100 plus court costs. He attached with his pleading something called a timeline, which sets out a timeline regarding the construction of this fence, which was originally built without a permit, was built on the wrong side of the property line. Eventually, it was permitted and constructed. Mr. Jeske, essentially, you claim they took down your fence and put up a new fence in the same spot.
Yes, sir.
And you think you should be compensated for the loss of your fence?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see if I can do this. All right, I went on Zillow and I took a picture of your houses. Is this the two houses in question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
The one on the left is, and that is the Mullendor house.
Yes.
And the one on the right, and that's Mr. Jeske's house. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Sir.
All right, there's a fence here, which we can see connected to the 609 house. And if we click over here a little bit, hard to do this and slowly. Anyway, is that the new fence or the old fence?
This is
the current fence that's there now. And then on the 605 side, there looks like some fallen down.
By the position of that fence, I'm thinking that is the first fence that went up.
All right, but it's the Mullendor's fence, not your fence.
Right.
Is that correct?
Their fence on my property.
All right. Now, darn it, I can't stop this right where I want it. That house looks a bit overgrown. But you can see, well, it's hard to finesse it. You have a fence in the back Mr. Jeske, your whole yard is fenced in?
My whole yard is, the only part that was my fence was the part they took down. My neighbor to the east, that is his fence you see in the back. And the neighbor to the south of me has a wire fence.
All right, so this house I see in the back, it appears the back side is faced to your house.
Right.
The good side is supposed to be faced to the neighbor. And then if we go here on the other side, yeah, that's hard to finesse it. There's a fence right there.
Now that metal fence is my neighbor's.
All right. You can, all right, so your yard currently is completely fenced in,
At that point, it was, the backyard was, yes.
right? Is it now?
What I did is I got the fence that I'm putting in and installed it. And I started at the front and went back as far as the distance was at the other fence plus the gate.
So here's the side of it. So are you gonna put up a fence 6 inches on the other side of this fence?
I'm gonna my fence currently is installed, approved by the inspectors. I put it a couple inches off the property line. And it runs parallel with their fence going backwards. And in the front, I've got a picture on my phone if anyone would like to see it.
So you have two fences back to back?
No, there is no fence in the back yet. When they moved the fence, they moved it roughly 8 inches onto their property. And I couldn't put my little hang fence on it. So I have to put a new fence, which I had put in this year.
Which was where?
The fence was right, okay, where their fence is there, at the back side of it, the back 90 foot, 80, 90 foot, I had a fence that they took down to put this fence in. This is before they moved it.
All right, well, what's wrong with this fence? It does anything that your old fence would have done.
I went to sign the papers that they had, and Shelley informed me that they had changed their mind. They were just gonna move the fence.
All right, so originally, without careful planning, it got installed on your side of the line. Is that correct?
Correct.
6 or 8 inches, or anyway, less than 2 feet. So the city got involved and said they didn't get a permit, and we aren't going to permit it because it's on the neighbor's property. So at some point, they had the fence redone and installed completely on their side of the line, and it was permitted by the city. Is that correct, Mr. Mullendorf?
Correct.
So right now, your fence is on your property and it's in compliance with city code.
Correct.
All right. So you got what appears to be a nice fence. And according to them, you took the fence down and burned it. So what's your loss? Why do you?
I did not burn the fence. I had 4 pieces of rotted 4x4 and some broken wood lattice left on my property. I still have to clean up all the cement that was left there when they put the first fence in, because there's hunks of cement sticking out of the ground.
Well, that may be an issue. All right. So then explain to me why I should order them to pay you $2,100.
Well, to replace that fence, you should have it in your folder now.
I do.
I got an estimate on that length of fence to be replaced.
But why do you want to replace it?
Because their fence is on 8 inches on their side of the property. I had no fence until this summer when I put a new fence up.
All right, which was where?
It starts at the front of the house and goes back. I bought the material to replace the fence that was there. And instead of putting it in the back of the house, I put it at the front of the house and ran it backwards the same length as the fence that was there.
Well, I don't have a picture of it. So you have a fence that's parallel to this fence that runs except a few inches on your side of the line?
Yes.
Why?
Because one, we were supposed to, that started out when they first put that fence in, they had a paper that the fence was gonna be mine. I just had to sign the paper.
Right, that was when I was on your
Some
side
time
of the line.
towards the end of the month, after multiple tries of trying to find somebody home, I went over and Shelley was there. And she said, well, we're not doing that. We changed our mind. So you're gonna have to put your own fence up.
Which was probably wise. It just makes a problem for the next person to buy the house, where the line is and that sort of thing. So the right move was to put the fence back inside their side of the line. But my question is, and I don't have a picture of it. So you built a parallel fence just a few inches on the other side of this fence?
There's roughly 8 to 10 inches between them because he is 8 to 10 inches on his side of the property line. And I had talked to them about just putting a little piece across to just put the gate up and let it go.
A piece across where?
Well, okay, if I go to the property line, say here's my property line, his fence is over here. A piece of, I call it a hanging fence, that would be mounted onto my post and over to his fence, but they did not give me the authorization to put that type of a fence up. Just enough to keep my dogs in, and I would have been happy with that. I would have let go. So I had to put up a whole fence in comparison to the distance of the other fence.
Are you talking about this piece right here? Where this fallen down lattice is?
No, that was what was put up there after they put the fence up.
So you put a whole fence 10 inches apart from this fence all the way back to your neighbor's fence?
No, not all the way back. I only went the distance of the fence that was taken down.
All right, again,
Roughly a 80, 90 foot.
you're saying they wouldn't let you connect to, I mean, it looks like the better side, it faces your house the way it's supposed to work. It runs all the way to the back. It looks like all that needed to be done was put a fence right here.
Yeah, I had at that point, when they took my fence down, I had put that, what I call a hanging fence. Basically, your fence is here, and it comes within an inch of the fence and an inch off the ground, and it's mounted to the post right there, which would have been a corner post. That would have been acceptable, but that fence that I did have when they were on my
All right.
property.
Well, where did that go?
Pardon me?
That went from where to where? This,
It went from where your finger is right there,
yes.
from that corner of the building to where their fence is.
All right, so right
and all the
across
way
here.
back is where
From
my
here to
fence
here
was,
and all the way back?
and all the way back.
Why all the way
There was
back?
no fence there. They just put that up 2 or 3 years ago. When they put that up, they took my fence down,
All right, I understand that.
and they went all the way back. There was
But-
never a fence on that property till that point, till the point where they moved it onto their property.
Well, there was a fence at one point on your property
Right.
that ran all the way back to your,
From the
Neighbor?
corner of that building,
all the way back to there
All
where
the way
that
back.
pole is. All
Yeah.
right. So, all right. So at this point, and I'm not sure what the timing of this is when this picture was taken, but there's a complete fence. The only thing that I see that you're missing is from here to here. And I don't have a picture of this. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that you put a fence 10 inches from the other fence.
oh,
Which would-
I bring up this picture to you.
Yeah, let's,
This is one I just took today. Where that black wire fence is where my fence was, but starting at the back of the building.
all right. So you put up,
It's called a Euro
All right.
fence.
okay, why?
I have dogs,
Um,
and they would not let me bring mine over, because when they first put that fence up, the one that you're showing up there, that was on my property, I had my fence and there was 4 inches gap. My dogs could get through that. So I had a piece of PVC fencing screwed onto my post, which came close to his property, which kept getting bust. I had to repair it all the time.
All right. You live there, so you know what it looks like, but this shows his wire fence.
I know what the wire fence looks like. It's about this far away from our fence.
All right. And so did you get a permit from the
Yes,
city
I
of
did.
Rivers to put that fence
And
up?
I had the inspector come out and he inspected it and said, it is on the property, it is on your property, you're good to go.
All right.
Because I had to give him a map diagram with dimensions, property lines, and where everything was. And I sent that in to them, they approved it. When they come out and inspected it, when it was done, they said, looks good.
Well, it actually goes farther than it needed to, but it goes back and then just stops and then relies on the other side of their fence. But you're saying that's where your fence was.
And the fence, that black fence I was just showing you, is they took the fence down, I took the dimensions and started pricing material. And this fence seemed to be the least expensive and least prohibitive as far as view.
All right. Have a seat. Thank you. I'm not able to share that picture, but it shows he did put up how tall is your fence? 6 feet?
6 foot.
And what he put up was a 4-foot black metal fence that extends about halfway back. He said about 90 feet. All right. So he contends that this cost him $2,100, all because you wouldn't let him connect his fence to this fence. Who's going to speak for the two of you?
I work nights. I really wasn't around a whole lot.
A lot of the interaction was between Ray and myself.
All right. Well,
because I was home.
what's your version?
Well, we put the fence up because we had above ground pool put in. And then I had knee replacement, and I could no longer access that pool with the locking ladder that came with the pool, because if we had that locking ladder, we did not have to fence in the yard. But once I told Mike, I said, I can't access the pool too easily. I'm not steady enough. So we had a set of steps put up to the pool built with handrails out of wood so I could get in my pool. That's when we had to put the fence in. So I remember Ray would always talk to me when I was out in the yard working when we first bought this fence. And he apologized to me. That I remember this so vividly. He apologized to me the very first time I was really out there cleaning up the yard. We bought the house in 2014. And he was apologizing about the way the fence looked that was between the two properties. Because he said, there was a tree right there. You see the hump there? I said, yeah. He said, they took it down and they took down my fence. He said, I could never get him to replace it. I tried to sue him. I could never get
the previous
the
property?
people that took his tree down, or this tree that was between our two properties before we even bought. And he said, they ruined my fence and I could never get a fence out of them. And I said, well, that's too bad. But I said, the tree's gone, And he apologized for his lattice work fence that had some posts, some wooden posts were there, but you could wiggle them because we were always pushing it back on to straighten up the fence.
Is that this kind of lattice that we're seeing there?
Well, but not the white. It was old lattice work, old brown, the wood lattice. And I said, well, it is what it is, So then when we decided to put the fence up because of the pool that we had to, I remember being outside and I said, hey, Ray, you're finally going to get your fence. He goes, what? I said, you're finally going to get your fence. We got to put it up because I'm getting some steps built because of my knee. And then I had another knee replacement. So I said, well, it's got to be done. So now I said, you finally getting your fence? He was like, great. That's about all that was said until the day that the kids came over to install the fence. And they were there, I was there, and Ray came out. And they're standing there looking at it and said, Shelley, where are we putting it? I said, well, right here. Ray's like, yeah, that's fine. He says, so we're taking this fence down and I said, yeah, we're just replacing a fence. Didn't really even dawn on me that I didn't know that that was not the property line. I did the famous assume. So Ray, Dakota said, well, sir, he said, when we take this down, he says, I got my truck and my trailer here. He says, I can haul it away for you. And Ray's like, no, just lay it down in my yard. Lay it down in my yard and I'll take care of it. Okay. There was no cement on those posts. The guys just lifted them out. Now our posts are cemented in. And when they pulled our posts out, they had to pull all the cement out because they were in our yard banging on the cement to get it off the post. But yeah, so Ray said, no, just leave it there. Take it down and leave it there. So that, in my mind, was my permission to take down this fence and put up a nice fence. And everybody'd be happy. You know, there was no malice involved whatsoever. And, you know, he could have easily just tapped right into ours, right from the edge of the house.
Well, that
right
was
there.
my question. He said you guys told him he couldn't do that. That would seem like the simplest solution.
It
just
does.
Connect that strip to the new fence and he would have an intact, tight, fenced-in backyard.
You're right, Your Honor.
So what happened there?
Well, one day we got a call, or excuse me, I got a letter from Safebuilt saying the fence did not pass inspection, which I've got the letter. That's when I found out, oh, we didn't need a building permit because it was not over 6 foot, but we needed a zoning permit. And I'm like, well, duh. I don't know this stuff, you know? So I went to the city, talked to the girls there, and they said, you don't need a building permit. You just need to apply for a zoning permit. Okay, so we did. And then they came back out and said, it's still on his property. It's on his property. It appears to be, I don't know, I had, how much? 2 to 3, it appears to be 2 to 3 feet on your neighbor's property. Get a property survey done or take the fence down. I'm like, whoa. Okay, so we had to go to Mostrom and get the property surveyed.
Mostrom is the county surveyor and
yes.
runs a surveying business.
Yes, Your Honor. And had that done and found out that, yes, we were on his property 6 to 8 inches. So we had to make the decision. Forrest Klein is the gentleman that worked for most Safebuilt. He and I would talk all the time because I was home dealing with the knee and then the second surgery. And so that's why I was always home. Mike was third shift. And Forrest said, Shelley, the best thing I said, well, what can we do? He goes, you're going to have to move the fence and put it on your property. Or if you can talk to your neighbor, maybe you can work something out with him that you can both share. I said, well, okay, I'll try that. So that's when we talked to Ray. I might have that reversed. I might have gone to Lori Hines first and said, Lori, this is what's going on. She goes, I can draw up a license, which would basically protect him. It'd be on his property. He would have complete use of it and ownership really of it. And if he sold his house, that goes with his house sale. But he could revoke it at any time and we could use it. but it was at our expense that we put our fence on his property, but we were going to allow him to use it. Well, so she drew up this license. We took it over to Ray, explained what was going on. I don't know that he totally understood what it said, but I said, well, we have a certain amount of time frame here to do this, because Safe Belt said you got to take it down or fix it. So 7 or 8 times Mike went over to Ray's, knocked on the door. There's their house in the front. There's a door and it goes into like a little room. And then there's another door to the house, because I remember I returned one of his dogs to him when we first moved there. Ray just never would acknowledge us. And I said, well, Mike, maybe he doesn't understand. He just never got back. So Forrest Klein would call me and say, what's going on? What's the time frame? I said, well, listen, Forrest, we've got this for Ray, but I have to go in and have another knee replacement. The knee replacement is going to take place September 7th. Can I deal with this after the knee replacement? He said, yeah, go ahead. So we hadn't heard from Ray, hadn't had any papers. He could have just signed it, dropped it in the mailbox, our mailbox. I had the surgery. By October, we had some kids come over and reinstall the fence on our property line. When that was happening, Ray came over and said, I was going to sign the paper. I was going to sign it. And I said, well, it's too late now. I mean, we paid these guys to move the fence already. Now, you're going to have to put your own fence up. That's how that came about. He could have easily tapped into that if he would have signed the paper. We gave him a fence.
All right, so that wasn't his fault that you put your fence up on his side of the line. And
No,
in fact, he wasn't even the one telling you to take it down. It was the city of Three Rivers.
no. The city of Three Rivers told us to take our fence down.
Yes, correct. Okay, so I'm still struggling as why they couldn't just connect right here. And he said you wouldn't let him do that, and you just sort of as much as said that.
Well, no, it just.
Well, you said to him, you're going to have to put up a new fence.
After we moved our fence onto our property, we moved our fence 8 inches onto our property from the property line. We moved it in 8 inches from the property line. And he just kept harassing us about this fence. It was like, we were giving you a fence, Ray. We're sorry we put it on your property. We're sorry, but we're trying to work with you and give you this fence. Sign this paper from Lori Hines that gives you license.
Well, I could see why he might be reluctant to sign that. Like I said, when you go to sell the property.
Well, here's her license right here.
It's in there.
Oh,
but
okay.
he didn't sign it. So
No.
Okay, so
we had
you moved the fence. It's on your side. Did you leave cement
No.
footings on his side?
No.
Not that I'm
And-
aware of.
No, I was out there watching the guys do it. And within 2 weeks, when we first put the fence up, within 2 weeks, he burned all the old lattice work and posts because it went up like crazy because it was dry and old. And I got scared. So I ran to the side of my house, grabbed my hose, ran into my backyard and hosed down the fence on my side because I was afraid his burning pit is pretty close to it. And I didn't want it to burn up. And that's how I know I was watching him burn his lattice work. I could see him throwing it on, because you can see,
All right, well, at some point, there was an offer of $1,000 to just resolve the whole thing. Is that true, Mr.
Yes,
Jeske?
it is.
Tell me about that.
Before I put this fence up, I went over and offered Mike, I said, if you could pay me $1,000, we'll write the whole thing off. I'll put the fence up. and it's a done deal, and we're done with it. At that point, I was told again, as I was every time I talked to him, well, you gotta put your own fence up. And in talking to them, I think it was mid-September, I went over to sign that paper that they had given. That's when Shelley informed me that they changed their mind, they're gonna move the fence. And it was about maybe 3 weeks later that they moved it, 2 or 3 weeks.
All right, well, I'm still struggling. I didn't get an answer from her, and I don't know I understood the answer from you. Why couldn't you just connect from here to here with
I was told I
some?
was not allowed to.
All right. Well, couldn't you put some posts on your side and just?
I did have it that way for a while until they moved it. I had a post 4 inches off of that fence.
All right.
And on that corner post that would have been next to their fence, it went from top to bottom, a piece of lattice, enough to keep dogs contained, was not attached to their fence or touching the ground, because at that point, when that was getting broke all the time, I was informed that they knew where the property line was. And I just.
Well, certainly what you put in looks better than some pieces of lattice,
Yeah.
but it seems like that would be the simplest solution. So you've got the property to the east is your neighbor's fence. The property to the north is your neighbor's fence. The property to the south is your neighbor's fence. It's just the part that faces east. And I certainly understand why you'd want to have your yard fenced in for your dogs. All right.
Your Honor,
Yes.
may I speak for a
Yes.
moment? In September, when he's claiming that I told him whatever, I told him that he was going to sign the paper, there's no way. September 7th was my knee surgery, and I was laid up. I mean, I
Well,
had a
if I
walker
was
at
him,
home.
I probably wouldn't have signed that either. That was just making future problems. You did the right solution by moving the fence back on your side of the line. But this license thing, you'd sell your house, there'd be a different person there, neighborhood disputes. It was just a recipe for future problems. So, but you both said, we told him he was going to have to put up his own fence. And for what it's worth, I don't know if his fence was aesthetically appealing, but it met his needs. And you had reasons why you wanted to put up a fence. In fact, you had to because of this. So certainly your fence is newer and probably nicer than what he had here. But he had to go through a bunch of rigmarole to get his property back fenced in. And the problem is, I don't think I have the most recent picture, but is essentially that what the fence looks like? It's plank wood.
Yeah, that's our fence.
It was a wood lattice fence, 4x4 posts.
Oh, his fence or our fence?
Your fence. That's what
our
your
fence
fence
is
looks.
what you're looking at.
Yes, okay.
But he could have tapped into from where it was right there. He could have.
Well, that seems like the simplest, most straightforward solution. What he has there, A, looks weird, and B, is more than he needs to fence it in. But it's code compliant, and it was approved by the city. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell me?
Well, I think we've said everything. I just said, though, that he could have tapped into our fence just to go from his house to the fence. And that would be, his dogs would have been secured.
Well, but you said, and Michael said, we told him he's gonna have to put up his own fence. That's certain, even if he didn't, he has to connect it close enough. One problem is your fence is 8 inches inside the property line. So in order to connect to your fence, he has to go onto your property line. So if he puts a post right on the property line, there's an 8-inch gap where his dog can run outside the fence. He says he was told he couldn't connect to it, but in order to connect to it, he'd have to go on at least 8 inches onto your property.
Your Honor,
Yes.
Michael told him, I don't care if you connect to the fence. I just have to be able to get through there to mow what property is ours unless you want to mow it for us, there's 8 inches of our property that we got to take care of.
Which is a continuing problem. In order to get to your 8 inches, you have to go onto the neighbor's property. So that's very often an issue with fences.
But that's why we just said, well, Mike and I said to ourselves, there's no reason why he can't just hook up there like he was, he had on his fence, on his lattice work. That's what was hooked onto his lattice work. And he'd lift it off the screw and slide it to get access his backyard. And then to lock it back up, he'd lift the lattice work and slide it back on the screw.
Well, the fence that he's got is certainly nicer than some old lattice work. And we see in the picture, it was sort of falling down there. What kind of dogs do you have, Mr. Jeske?
Chihuahua Terrier, and Shih Tzu Terrier.
So they don't need too much space to get between two fences.
No, they don't. No, I did talk to them about connecting to their fence, and I was always told no. And I did have a piece when the fence was sitting like that, what you're looking at on the screen. Yeah. I did have a piece going from my post to the fence that didn't connect to the fence. It just hung there. I'd have to replace it once a week.
Well, that's the part she talked about latching and unlatching it. All right, Mr. Jeske, you're the plaintiff. Is there anything else you wish to tell me?
Pardon?
Is there anything else you wish to tell me?
I said, well, like I said, I did talk to him. I talked to Sheila or Shelley in September because I knew it was getting close to the end of that 30 days that I was told about. And she informed me that they changed their mind and I had to get my own fence up. That's the only thing that's consistent with the whole thing.
You filed this just before we came into the court.
That was just a comparison to difference between a wood fence and this fence.
I see. So a wood fence would have been $3,800.
Right.
Okay, I didn't understand what that was. So fence and material, $1,800. Labor, new fence and gate, $300. $2,100 plus zoning permit of $75. And I'm looking for and I have your safe built permits. And what I was looking for is the company that actually installed the fencing. I never saw that. Who put in your fence?
I put the fence in. I bought the materials and the tools needed. which are not on that bill anywhere. It is a no-dig fence where the posts are driven in, and it took me probably a little over 10 hours, roughly, to put that fence in. It was during the heat, a bad heat spell we had, and I couldn't take the heat all day, so I'd get maybe one section up, have to come out and remeasure and reset my jigs, and pound in the next post. So it took me about 2 days to put that in. Total of maybe 10 hours. But I put it in. I'm a handyman by trade, so.
Well, back in October of 22, they moved it onto their property. Then you said, I would settle for $1,000
Yes, sir.
and call it even. And they said no. And then you said, if I have to take you to court, I'll sue for the whole replacement value. Michael said, go ahead and try. So that's what you did. So where did you buy the fencing?
Menards.
Do you have a receipt for that in here
I
somewhere?
don't have that with me. Don't have that one with me.
All right. In October of 22, had you already put in the fence?
No, I just put that in this year because what was going on is the woman I live with, we take dogs out, and she was always worried. She had emotional issues. And she was constantly worrying about these dogs going out that opening. So at some point I just decided that's it. I got to at least get the fence up so that she won't worry about that anymore. And that's why I did the way I did with part of a fence, matching the dimensions of the fence that I did have.
All right. Well, it's certainly a shame that it all went down the way it did, because a simple solution would have been to just bridge that gap right there for certainly not this amount of money. All right.
Your Honor,
Yes.
could I speak again?
I guess so. In for a penny, in for a pound. Go ahead.
I'm just, when he said Mike was offered $1,000,
He offered you pay him $1,000.
or yes, I'm sorry, I messed that up. That was Father's Day this year.
That's the only time.
Yeah, that is the only time he's ever had any conversations with us since we moved the fence and got it legal. And now it's 2 years later. And I don't understand why he couldn't have said, because we told him, yeah, it'd just be real easy to hook onto our fence from your side of your house. But when we moved our fence in October, I think it was in October, on our property, when he came over saying that I was just going to sign the paper, I'm like, well, we're already paying the guys now.
Well, you didn't tell me anything new. We just repeated something.
Well, yeah, but I just am saying I don't understand why 2 years has gone by.
All right, well, it has, but let's back up. And you're right, there was no maliciousness involved in this at all, and people ought to be able to get along with their next door neighbor because you're joined at the hip. But this was all on you. He had a fence, whether it was junky or not, that met his needs. You decided you needed a new fence, and were willing to pay for one. So you took his fence down. It was on his side of the line. And he acquiesced to that, apparently. And I think the fence you put up looks better and probably sturdier. But he was fine where he was with this lattice and post fence. So you take his fence down, you put up a new fence, you put it on his side of the line. Then he's got this rigmarole thing here. Then they find out it's on the wrong side of the line. You come up with this licensing idea, which could have solved it. Never got signed. You had your hip surgery. Finally, you decided, let's just move it back. So you move it back, and now it's 8 inches on your side of the line. And there's a dispute about whether he could hook up to your side of the line or not. We're about to go offline here. Then you both said, well, I guess you got to put up your own fence. So I've been struggling with this, trying to figure out how to parse it out. But when I parse it out that way, you caused the problem. He offered to settle for $1,000. You declined. So he puts up a fence. And you both said, we said, well, I guess you got to put up your own fence. So he did. When the fence he had was fine. Now he's the beneficiary of a new fence that he paid for. And so his property got improved by his labor and his expense. What he put in was better than what he had. And now his dogs are secure. But he would have had to do any of this if you hadn't gone through all this rigmarole with taking the old fence down. And maybe if it had been put up on the right side of the line right off the bat, it could have been reconciled by just bridging that gap. So there was some misunderstanding. And apparently at one point he was connected to your fence, and you described taking it down and off of there, and he described how it didn't work. I'm going to order $1,000 plus $300 for his labor. $1,300 for Mr. Jeschke. He's got a new fence out of the deal, which he would not have had to do. So he gets some benefit from it. So I'm going to reduce it to $1,000 and give him his labor. So the total is $1,397. I will have the clerk prepare a cleaner copy of this. Hello, Mr. Metz. Nice to see you.
Hello, Your Honor.
All right. Now you're also still stuck with each other. You're going to live next door to each other. And I don't want this to just engender continual hard feelings. There was some misunderstanding here. There was some miscommunication. But as you indicated, there wasn't any maliciousness. But it ended up in this, and he had to go through this to get what he needed. So I will stop the share, stop the live feed, clerk to prepare a new order. There's the other one. And if you wait right here, we'll bring you a copy of that. All right, we'll be in recess. Now, theoretically, that's due within 21 days. 28 days. And if it's paid, that's the end of it. If it isn't paid, he can try other methods to collect on the debt. It's probably worth that much money to just bring closure to this. All right, we'll go sign this order and she'll bring it out.
Live stream is still on.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for watching. Do you think the judge made the right call on that one? Neighbors ending up in court always makes it awkward to go home each day. That resentment doesn't go away because of the judgment. Make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think. Again, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share the videos. We have a live show each night at 8 p.m. called American Courts Live. Make sure to check it out and join the chat, and we'll see you there.